one way I've been describing helping people think about Black people's response to police brutality and why people riot, and why our response to it is not very helpful. I think that the way that I've been describing it now is to think of like, imagine me as a grown adult beating up on a 2-year-old child, on top of them, punching them, right? And then someone seeing that 2-year-old child punch me back, and then go intervening and saying, don't punch back. Punching is not right. It's inappropriate for you to be punching someone like that. It's not healthy. There's nothing productive to do, comes from you punching people, right? That would be ridiculous. It would be literally nonsensical to even spend your time worrying about how this little 2-year-old child is responding to being beaten up, right? The real issue at hand at that point is to get the adult to stop pounding on this little child. And that's the same thing with literally the United States government has been beaten down and repressing and oppressing our people for centuries, destroying our communities for centuries. And the first thing that people want to say is, oh, what about the Target or something? Who cares about Target right now? In the grand scheme of things, that really doesn't matter given the weight of what's actually happening. I actually don't think that the child punching back is necessarily productive and is going to break the cycle, but that is not the issue of the real violence that's happening right in that moment. And so I think that we lack the ability to see what's actually happening all around us because we're so individualistic in terms of how we focus on racism, and we usually focus it on what Black people are doing and on policing Black people's behavior, and not focusing on these bigger issues in terms of how the harm that's being caused by these systems and institutions and policies that are destroying Black people's lives. And because it's less personal now, right? Because racism through these institutions, it's not the same as the KKK burning, a cross in someone's yard, and they're not the ones lynching people. It's a lot more sophisticated now, right? So people's hands can be clean.
The looting is somewhat of a distraction, for folks who don't know how to make sense of the bigger picture and what, say, Black Lives Matter is about. It's an easy distraction to focus on the looting as like, that's bad. So let's have a conversation about looting. And we can talk about looting, but I think only if we have a conversation about the reason why this anger, this frustration, and these events are happening at the structural level. What is it that makes people angry? What is it that brings people out in the street en masse? What is it that allows us to even get to the place where we're experiencing across the country these protests? And, I think at some level, my line for gauging what's okay and what's not okay is violence. And, you can argue, is violence against property really violence? Because there's not really life there. Is violence something specific for people? But I would say anything that's dehumanizing to people is there in violence, right? That's an expression of violence. And so I think that's the line. Like, we cross the line when we're violent to our brothers and sisters, when we dehumanize them, when we think of property more than we think of them, when we shift our focus. Like, that's actually a very dehumanizing thing. So while it is not okay to take people's livelihoods, burn their businesses, break their windows, flip their cars, burn out, whatever, I think it's a tragedy, really, if we don't understand why people are angry, how we've gotten to a place where that happens, and what is it that is actually going to make us more human.
Right now, we see the protests going on, and even some of the looting, some not condoned. But at a certain point, people who are frustrated, who are angry, who are tired of asking and begging, are going to do whatever it takes to get your attention. And that's what we see now. And that's clearly, the last couple of weeks, we've seen it going into the world. And it's good to see, slowly but surely, people starting to get on board. You start to see people calling out different things. Institutions are letting them know we're behind this, we're supporting you. And that feels so good to finally, somebody hears me. And it's great. I'm looking forward to see where it goes. We have to continue this momentum, but it's definitely, it's a good feeling. I think overall, the cycle of just getting the attention of people in power and having it kind of being dismissed after a couple weeks is something I've personally seen over in this country for the last 10 years. For everything from when the Trayvon Martin situation happened to Eric Garner, and just the same situation, protesting the same thing. People are marching saying the same thing, signing the same petitions, and a month later, nothing happens. 3 days later, we see the same killing happen again. And people still asking, oh, why are you protesting? This is why. Because no matter how many times we keep protesting, it keeps happening. Let me know that whoever's in power, whoever making these changes, who are making these laws that are giving all these things power, isn't being changed. Nothing's being changed. So seeing that overall it's hurtful, it's disappointing, it's painful, because you're constantly putting yourself out there, you're constantly putting your emotions and your feelings out there, only to have it being dismissed over and over again. And when it happens again, it's like, oh, it happened for the first time. No, it hasn't. This isn't the first time this happened. This is our reality for decades. We have generations of people who will continue to tell us the same thing. And we're seeing it in my generation. Last thing I want is the next generation to see the same thing. I don't want my future kids or whoever it is have to keep dealing, keep protesting the same thing. So overall as a country, we've been in this cycle for like so long. And I think one of the only positives of this pandemic is the fact that everybody's home, in a sense, so everybody's attention is on it. I like to continue to put myself out there, and the people I'm with, and my friends and my family, and those who support the change in our community. We have to keep doing it because it has to be done. The generations before us allow us to have the privilege to do this. The privilege for me to be here today, to be able to walk and talk the street and feel okay and be around people that look like me. Those are because of the works of the people in the past. That's the generations that have been marching, that was spray painted, that was being sprayed with hose, that couldn't sit at the dining table to talk, that had different bathrooms. Those people paved the way for us now. So it's only right for me to continue that same cycle and continue to fight for it, because if we don't, who else will? I don't want to be 50 years old and then my kids are coming to me saying this is happening and I didn't do anything about it when I knew what was going on. I want to be able to know that our next generations are having a better future and we're doing at least something about it, rather than it being I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 80 years old and I'm seeing the same thing over and over and I'm wondering what happened. Somebody has to get involved. We have to continue to put ourselves out there because that's the only way change will happen.